Chapter 1. Know the game you're in. Most people drift through life believing they're free players in their own story. They think they choose their friends, their jobs, their beliefs, their dreams. They think the world is fair, or at least neutral, waiting to reward good intentions and honest effort. That's the comforting lie society sells to keep you docile. The belief that you are not in a game, but you are. You always have been. The truth is that every room you walk into has a game unfolding, whether it's a boardroom, a bedroom, a courtroom, or a kitchen table at home. People are moving toward their goals, protecting their interests, pulling strings to gain advantage, often without saying it aloud. Power dynamics aren't abstract theories. They're the invisible rules deciding who thrives, who survives, and who gets sacrificed when the music stops. Know the game you're in is not just advice. It's a call to wake up, to stop imagining life as a straight, honest line and see it as what it truly is, a layered contest of influence, desire, strategy, fear, and timing. It's about opening your eyes to the currents beneath the surface, to the unspoken battles shaping your relationships, your workplace, your community, even your own family. This chapter title is a warning and an invitation. A warning that if you do not know the game you're in, you are not a player. You're a piece being moved on someone else's board. And an invitation to claim your agency, to start watching with sharper eyes, listening with keener instincts, and positioning yourself with deliberate intent. Power begins not with action, but with clarity. You cannot win a war you don't even know you're fighting. You cannot rise in a game you refuse to study. To know the game you're in is to strip away illusions and see life as it truly operates. It doesn't make you cruel, it makes you awake. It doesn't demand manipulation, only awareness. And once you have that awareness, you can finally stop playing blind and start making moves that matter. Historical example, Niccolo Machiavelli. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. Niccolo Machiavelli. In Renaissance Florence, politics was blood sport. Families rose like empires and fell overnight. Friendships were weapons, promises paper thin, loyalty a commodity traded like silk. Machiavelli sat in the middle of this chaos, not as a king or conqueror, but as an observer, watching men dance for power, stumble in naivety, and die for their failure to understand the game they were in. When the Medici family reclaimed Florence after a brief exile, men who had backed their rivals suddenly found themselves stripped of titles, wealth, even breath. They had bet wrong because they had failed to read the room. Machiavelli studied these mistakes and realized power was not about morality. It was about calculation, timing, positioning. In The Prince, he dismantled every comforting lie about leadership. Success was not for the virtuous. It was for those who understood fear, perception, and control. He saw how Cesare Borgia built loyalty not by kindness, but by necessity. Soldiers feared him more than they feared his enemies. Allies stayed because leaving meant ruin. The game was clear to Borgia. Power is not possessed. It is negotiated daily, through fear, force, and image. Those who didn't understand this rule were crushed beneath it. Modern example, Edward Snowden and the architecture of control. I don't want to live in a world where everything that I say, everything I do, everyone I talk to, every expression of creativity and love or friendship is recorded. Edward Snowden. Fast forward 5 centuries. The battlefield of Florence has become a digital landscape, yet the game remains unchanged. Today, power isn't enforced with swords, it's maintained with information. Snowden's revelations cracked the facade of a free, open digital world and showed the machinery humming behind the curtain. Governments and corporations had built a silent empire of surveillance, knowing more about people than people knew about themselves. It wasn't tyranny with jackboots and gunfire. It was soft, invisible dominance. You didn't need to fear prison. You feared losing privacy, losing control of your own narrative. And because most didn't know the game existed, they were already checkmated. This is the modern lesson. The most dangerous players are not the loudest. They're the ones you can't see. Power operates best when it convinces you there's no game being played at all. Snowden forced the world to notice the board, and millions realized they'd been pieces all along. Folktale, The Monkey and the Mirror, India, 17th century. A merchant passing through an Indian village left a small mirror leaning against a tree. A curious monkey came down, seeing another monkey staring back. The reflection copied every move. Thinking it a rival, the monkey screeched, clawed, and attacked. But the enemy never fell. Exhausted, bruised, the monkey sat and stared, only to finally realize the truth. It had been fighting itself all along. The story became a warning told to children and kings alike. You cannot win a battle you do not understand. Many spend their lives lashing out blindly, believing the world is against them, never realizing they are trapped in a game they refuse to see. Tactical placement. Every space you enter is alive with invisible negotiations. People are trading respect, vying for attention, seeking advantage, guarding secrets, testing boundaries. The game doesn't announce itself. It isn't written on the walls or handed out in a rule book. It hides in glances, in pauses between words, in who people turn to when tension rises. To know the game you're in is to train yourself to see what most refuse to notice. Start by becoming a watcher. When you enter a room before you speak, observe. Who really commands the space? It's rarely the loudest voice. It's often the one others subtly defer to. The person whose approval or disapproval changes the energy instantly. Who is masking fear with humor? Who is silently gathering information? Who's desperate to be liked? And who couldn't care less? The game begins long before a single word is spoken. Once you see the layout, you can begin to navigate it. Power doesn't flow to the one with the best ideas or the purest intentions. It flows to the one who understands leverage and positioning. You don't need to dominate the game immediately. You only need to stop being blind to it. Every hesitation you notice, every false smile, every desperate laugh is information. A map of where the openings lie and where the traps are set. And here's the human truth most people never admit. Even in friendships, love, or family, a game is being played. People crave validation, security, control. They test loyalty. They compete for affection, for dominance, for the feeling of being heard or obeyed. Pretend this isn't happening, and you'll be blindsided, wondering why you're always the one hurt, overlooked, or discarded. Knowing the game isn't about becoming manipulative. It's about becoming sovereign over your own life. It's about refusing to be used as someone else's pawn. When you see the hidden dynamics, you gain choice. You can align, you can outmaneuver, you can withdraw. But you are no longer moving blindly, no longer bleeding from invisible cuts. You see the board, you understand the pieces, and you finally have the power to make moves that serve you. In every room, in every interaction, you have two options. Play the game with awareness or be played without knowing it. Tactical mastery begins with the courage to admit the game exists and the discipline to study it before you ever make your first move. Apply this in relationships. Read intentions, not words. Love is a negotiation of influence. Leadership. Know the politics of every room before you give your first order. Manipulation. Spot the hidden rules and twist them to your advantage. Friendship. Understand who truly holds sway in your circles. It's not always the loudest voice. Reversal. There's a danger in obsession. See too much game in everything, and you become paranoid, alienating allies you could have trusted. Not every moment needs manipulation. Not every silence hides betrayal. Sometimes the most powerful move is to stop calculating and act with genuine courage. Power is knowing the game, but wisdom is knowing when to step outside it. Power principles. The game of power is always being played, whether you admit it or not. Ignorance of power dynamics makes you prey. Information is leverage, perception is control. Observe before acting. Read the room before making your move. The greatest trap is believing no game exists. Closing thoughts. Life is not a fairy tale. No matter how much you want it to be, it is a living, breathing contest of intentions, fears, and desires. Everyone is playing a game, whether they know it or not. Some play for survival, some for love, some for dominance, some just to avoid being devoured. The tragedy is not losing. It's never realizing you were even on the board. Power is not about crushing others. It's about refusing to be moved like a pawn in someone else's hands. It's about seeing the hidden rules that shape your fate and deciding at last to stop living blind.